Thanks, Paula. There is some duplication in this, so hopefully it will be quick to allow time for questions afterwards. But yeah, so I'm Dan Clarke. I work for the Greater Cambridge Partnership. We're a collection of councils in the Greater Cambridge area that are delivering a programme of transport improvements. We were set up specifically to address some of the issues that are arising because of the amount of growth that's planned in Cambridge. So Cambridge has got plans for 33,500 houses by 2031 in our local plan. We're putting together a new local plan which looks at an additional 52,000 homes by 2041. And about 6 months ago, Michael Gove announced a further 100,000 homes for Cambridge, which would take the total up to about 150,000 by 2050. Cambridge currently has about, I think it's about 72,000 houses. So you can see it's a huge expansion. And yet, if you come to Cambridge and you've driven on a road network, you know it's already congested. So, you know, it's really difficult to get around. The public transport offering, you know, won't support that number of houses. So we really need to do something radical when it comes to our transport system. And we have a kind of a target to reduce the amount of cars on our road by about 20 to 25%. That's on a 2019 baseline. And to do that, we need to really get people out in their private cars, and we need to get them on to more sustainable modes of transport, whether that's some form of mass rapid transit, whether it's bus, whether it's walking, or whether it's cycling. And that's kind of what the investment that we've got is looking to do. So we are building some busways, and I'll talk a little bit about some of the opportunities there for automated vehicles. We're building a big network of greenways, cycleways. And so why as a local authority would be interested in automated vehicles? I think the thing for us is, you know, it's a really interesting technology, and we wanted to be in there at the beginning to understand what the use cases would be, how we as a local authority could work with our operators to understand where the benefits would fall for our local communities and residents. So what does this mean for the travelling public? What does it mean for our communities? And how can we support its introduction if we prove out some of those use cases? So yeah, Jim talked about some of the areas where we think automated vehicles will bring benefit to local areas. I think for us, you know, this idea of the reduction in cost is really important, and the reduction in accidents. So, you know, if we can drive down the cost of delivering bus services, that makes them more affordable. It makes more routes commercial. You know, that isn't just about taking the driver out, but that is about things like, you know, fuel efficiency, improved punctuality, and reduction in lost miles due to driver unavailability. And actually getting hold of drivers is quite difficult. And we know, talking to operators, that there are shortages. And, you know, we've got really big ambitions when it comes to expanding the bus network. I think the other thing to say is that we are exploring franchising at the moment. So at some point, we may be the authorities operating automated vehicles. So we really need to understand them. We need to understand the operational and the commercial cases around them. We're really interested in how we can expand services, how we can run services beyond the current kind of timetable, potentially overnight. And when we think about Cambridge, you know, we've got really big campuses, tech campuses and bioscience campuses, where we've got people coming on and off all night. So, you know, continually throughout the night. We've got big hospitals as well on one of our biomedical campuses. And again, we've got people coming on and off that site continually. So how do we provide them with a bus service? Because they're already really congested, and we need to get cars away from those big campuses. Better accessibility. So Stagecoach have this idea of a bus captain who would actually be in the vehicle, who would be able to help people with disabilities get on and off the bus, be able to help with customer service. But anyway, all the buses that we're looking at will be accessible. And so one of the pieces of work that we're going to be doing is around human factors and thinking about how people can access buses and actually what the traveller experience is. And then I think for us, one of the kind of short-term use cases, so one of the first use cases that we'll probably see emerging, particularly in the Cambridge area, is around mass rapid transit and how we can apply this technology to the busways that we're building. So we've been in this space now since about 2016. We were approached by some university researchers who were really interested in this kind of emerging technology and working with us to understand what the opportunities might be for us as an area. So we did an initial study that looked at the guided busways and whether we could put automated vehicles on there. They're the perfect test environment because they're segregated. It's a controlled environment. So we did some work looking at how we could apply vehicles onto the busways, and then we also started to look at a system called Very Affordable Rapid Transit, which someone at the university was developing, which was a mass rapid transit system for Cambridge, which hasn't actually progressed in Cambridge, although it has informed some of our thinking around mass rapid transit, but is now being explored in Milton Keynes. So from that, we put a funding bid into the Centre for Connection Autonomous Vehicles. We got some funding to expand the work that we've been doing looking at the busway, but also we started working with the Wellcome Trust to look at a link between their campus and a nearby railway station called Whittlesford Parkway. They own all the land in between. And I think this is a really interesting use case for us. We've got a number of campuses around the city. We've got a really good rail network with lots of small stations. So how do we begin to link those campuses into the core networks, whether that's bus or rail network? From that, we then developed an AV strategy, which identified some opportunities for us to begin to test and trial vehicles. And we did our first deployment, which again was funded by the Centre for Connection Autonomous Vehicles with a company called Origo. So that was in Cambridge in 2021. We ran out of one of our park and ride sites into a university campus, so the West Cambridge campus. It served a number of the buildings on there. It's quite a big kind of campus with a number of research buildings. Unfortunately, that trial fell over COVID, so it was foreshortened and we didn't have as many people as we were hoping to ride the vehicles. But what we did get to understand was that these vehicles can run in mixed traffic. We got a much better understanding of the safety regime that we need to put around them to ensure that we are running in a safe manner. And we did some work talking to people who came and used the vehicles, and actually they were a lot more positive than the work that Jim talked through on CAV Forth. We had a smaller cohort, and Cambridge is a very kind of tech focused city, so it may be that a lot of people kind of came from that sector and that kind of skewed the results, but we found that about 80% of people would definitely have used the vehicle again if it was running full time. So from that, we then put another funding bid in to the Centre for Connection Autonomous Vehicles, and we have a new project which is Connector, and we're really lucky to be working with Jim and our local operator, so Stagecoach, who have about 80% of the market in Cambridge, and Alexander Dennis Limited. So taking their experience from running on CAV Forth and bringing it down to Cambridge. We'll be running 4 vehicles over 2 sites. So once again, returning to Cambridge West, running out of the park and ride again, round that university campus, and then into a new housing development that the university have built called Eddington. We'll then be moving from that site onto a much more complex area. So this will be running out of the Trumpington Road Park and Ride site into the biomedical campus, which has 3 hospitals on it, a number of research facilities. There are blue light movements on there, and then out the other side to Babraham Park and Ride. But huge transport issues on that campus, and we've been engaged quite closely with the businesses and the hospitals and the university who are really involved there, and they really see the kind of value in the work that we're doing, and we'll be discussing with them what other use cases potentially there are on campus. So there is a new railway station being built there called Cambridge South, and so could we use Cambridge South to link into the rest of the campus? we'll be doing a lot of safety work, so really trying to understand how the vehicles will run in the domain. So we'll do a domain safety case and a vehicle safety case. We have two other partners called IPG and de-risk, and we'll be doing testing in a virtual environment, looking at some of the edge cases when it comes to safety, to ensure that we are operating in a safe way. And as a local authority, I think it's incumbent on us to make sure that whatever we're doing, we have a safety framework around it. We'll be deploying a 5G network to support operations and putting in a vehicle charging network as well. So I've already talked through the partners. So it's Fusion, Alexander Dennis, Stagecoach. Gamma will be deploying the 5G network and charging, and IPG and de-risk will be doing the virtual testing. We'll be using two types of vehicles. So on West Cambridge, we've got a smaller Mela vehicle, which has 16 seats there, and that has been running in Oxfordshire previously, and we'll be beginning to run that in September. And then our aim is to begin to run 3 of the ADL 100s that Jim talked about on the biomedical campus, and that will start in January. And both those services will run to March. Both will be fully electric, and both will be wheelchair accessible. So yeah, I've already talked through the routes. So a relatively simple route to start with. A much more complex route is the kind of second part of the trial. And then so as well as the safety cases will then go off and be validated at Hariba Myra. We're doing virtual safety testing. We'll be ensuring that the testing sites support AV operations. So Jim already talked about the importance of, making sure that all the vegetation's trimmed back, the white lines, and the kind of, the curbs are all in good order. And we'll be engaging with local members and the community to really understand what they think of the deployment. Would they use automated vehicles? We'll be talking to people who do use it about their experience, engaging with businesses and with our local members as well. So really important to bring our local members along with us. And we're engaging with DVSA, and we will be engaging with a program called CAVPAS, which is around safety. Stagecoach are providing the depot, the maintenance and the drivers for us. Really important to have them on board to help develop the kind of business cases and to bring some kind of commercial sense to what we're doing, to make sure that it has commercial value. So for us, we think there's some real opportunities. We are building new busways. They don't use concrete channels. They're just going to be tarmacked roads. We think initially we can use the Fusion system for guidance, but in the kind of medium to long term, we can move to automated operations. Really, interested to explore the routes that we've identified. There are other routes like that in Cambridge that we could scale to. Looking at links into major transport hubs, but I think for us the real prize is rural transport. So if we can drive down the cost and we can make rural transport networks commercially viable, particularly on on-demand routes, and then I think that could really revolutionize the kind of the bus network for us. So that is something that we're really interested in. And the last thing I just wanted to touch on, and I think it's important for local authorities to understand this, there are some implications for local authorities in the Automated Vehicles Act. Some of this is dependent on secondary legislation, but there will be a requirement for TROs to be in a digital format. There'll be a statutory instrument in early 2025, and we think that will kick in kind of the end of 2025-26. The private taxi licensing for automated taxis, so that's taxis without drivers, will go to the Secretary of State. So local authorities will lose the ability to license driverless taxis, and we think that could have some significant implications, particularly if we've had some conversations at Move last week with Uber, who are still looking at this area. There are still some other big players in this market. If they wanted to come in, then what control would the local authority have over how they're deployed in the city? And then the other is around the kind of arrangements for monitoring of AVs if they're operating in your area, and making sure that they're operating in a safe and kind of consistent manner, and that they're complying with the kind of regulations, and that would be working hand in hand with government. So that's me. Thanks very much.